Welcome back. Now, the xenophobic attacks on Nigerians and other foreigners aggravated this week as South Africans continued their attack and destroyed businesses. This has led to reprisal attacks by Nigerians and South African-owned businesses in the country, which also led to the shutdown of the South African High Commission in Nigeria, as well as some other businesses like MTN. The federal government has, however, condemned the xenophobic attack as well as the reprisal attacks. The president sent an envoy in the person of the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ambassador Ahmed Abubakar, to South Africa to address the issue with the president. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs also announced that Air Peace Airline has volunteered to send an aircraft to South Africa to evacuate Nigerians who are willing to return to the country free of charge. Even though, Alero, we got this news that some people were scamming the Nigerians, telling them, you want to go home, we can get you back to Nigeria for $1,000. Just...
Well, thank God Air Peace has now offered them transit.
Yeah, that was even after
the offer.
Yes, after they. But I'm sure we'll get clarity in the course of... Anyway, so to help us understand how to resolve this matter, because it's not something that started today. We've had cases of xenophobic attacks around the Southern Africa and indeed around the world. So how do we get xenophobic issues resolved? We have in the studio Barrister Malaki Ugumad, who is the president of CDHR. Thank you.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
Jerry Njoku, who is the publisher, Lentafric. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And also here is Festus Mbisiogu, who is a coordinator of Nigerians in diaspora organization. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let me start with you, Festus. This matter of xenophobic attacks and all of that, because we're also hearing about such attacks in China and around the world, basically. How did they all start? Or what gives impetus to these issues?
Well, the case in South Africa. Let me just start with the case in South Africa. It has been on for a very long time now. I think from my own knowledge, over 10 years ago, because some of my friends are residing in South Africa. And if urgent need is not being taken, it will escalate more, based on what I heard before coming to the studio. The information I had is that despite the pressure from Nigerian government to ensure that this issue stop, despite the efforts from the South African authority, their indigents are resolved to carry out this act. Yesterday I was told that similar acts took place in one location in South Africa. That's what I was told. And this is a news I got this morning, because I'm representing Nigerians in diaspora in China. So some of our colleagues there are giving me updates of what is going on.
Mr. Misiago, what exactly is our crime?
That's a good question. very, very, very good question, madam. You see, Nigerians are industrial people. And in South Africa, we are doing so very well over there, probably conquering some of the business environment where we domicile. And from what I was told, the indigenous seems not to be happy about that, and feeling that we are taking over their, probably their businesses and so on. So that's where these things, they start hitting Nigerians, mainly Nigerians and other Africans. So this is what I know. They told me that it was going on. Even right there in China as well, we don't have it so much, but similar things happen. Like the city in Guangdong province, Guangzhou in Guangdong province. statistics shows that over 10,000 Nigerians are residing in Guangdong province. Over 10,000 Nigerians are residing there. And out of these 10,000 Nigerians, about 80% of us are doing legitimate business. 80% of us are doing legitimate business. And the Chinese, some of them are not too comfortable with that, thinking of taking over their businesses. And some of them are happy because they are using us to exploit Nigeria, because we open their eyes to see that a lot is happening in their country. So some of them are merging with Nigerians in Guangzhou, opening an office here, making them a representative, and they'll be sending. I don't think it's too good to our economy, because why I say that is that 80% of what we use in this country is from China. I live in China for over 14 good years. Okay. Even 90% is from that place. So. Okay.
Now, Malaki, one of the ministers, I can't remember whether it was the Minister of the Interior, came and said that Nigerians are doing drugs. And that is why they're trying to get us out of their country, and that's why they're killing us, that we are the kingpins. And the picture that I got was the picture of Chicago and New York during the period of the Prohibition, in the days of the Gambino family and all that. Say, okay, now they're trying to tell us that these are drug wars, and it is Nigerians who are killing Nigerians. And there's so much information going around that we don't even know which one to believe anymore. So, my question is, if you have found that the Nigerians are doing drugs, how many of them have you arrested?
Correct.
Have you taken to court, found guilty, and put away for their crimes?
What exactly is the statistics of convictions recorded with respect to your allegation? Only then will you not be promoting what we call impunity. Impunity strives when you identify this criminal action or malfeasance.
And it could be all fake news.
Did nothing about it, and thereby empower the next offender to perpetrate the same offense even more viciously. So we need to deconstruct the remedial efforts coming in the wake of these unpardonable attacks. And like my colleague did say, it's been on for a while now. 1994 was when South Africa was liberated from the apartheid regime. Nigeria in particular played very serious roles, including the fact that some of the state actors now, some past presidents, Mbeki in particular, all found refuge here in Nigeria, in known homes.
Yes.
Part of our struggle was inspired by what students did at that level. I'm not sure you and I were undergraduates then, but we read the story. We read the story, documented story of what and how Nigeria stood up, even to world powers, against Great Britain that colonized them, but in clear resentment of what was going on in South Africa. People contributed their pocket money as students. Homes were made available for comrades or for cadres who were coming from South Africa. Scholarships were awarded for those who showed sufficient capacity intellectually to build themselves and return back to carry on with the struggle. And all sorts, including diplomatic engagements. So there is a historical disconnect. And I imagine that a huge chunk of the blame should go to even ANC that fought a war, a battle of over 4 decades, came out of that battle and disorientated their people in a way that has now posed this big embarrassment internationally. The two leading African countries, South Africa and Nigeria, are daggers drawn. If we cannot fix xenophobic attacks in Africa, where is the moral high ground to challenge racism in the United States of America? To what extent can we afford this whole demobilization of Africa, which is the original philosophical base of ANC as a political movement that promoted Pan-Africanism, brotherhood, camaraderie, and so on and so forth. So there are layers of very unfortunate developments that has arisen out of this. ANC as a political party, a political movement, conscious and deliberate on very important issues that puts us together as one people, must share sufficient blame this time around. The people of South Africa, and I'm rounding off here, must find a way of reconnecting with the story of their historical evolution. I happen to be a member of the movement for liberation of Western Sahara today, under the leadership of Professor Gambari and coordinated by Dikpo Fashino, former ASU president. We have resolved that we may have to be documenting what is going on now in our little effort to bring about the change in Western Sahara. Because the events of today have shown that you can lose it and miss it entirely if you fail to orientate your people appropriately.
Mr. Njoku, information out there has it that the population of Nigerians living in South Africa is incomparable to the population of other Africans living in South Africa, as in terms of, if you say, in numbers. So how many Mozambicans live in the country of South Africa? Is it, if you say, someone said there are about over 200,000, over 100,000 Zimbabweans, and just about 20-something thousand or 30-something thousand Nigerians live in Southern Africa. So if you do that, is it the Nigerians that are causing so much havoc that the attack is on them, or the attack is across everyone who is not Southern Africa in that country?
So you should know, the fact is that Nigeria has a population advantage over every other African nation anywhere, not only in South Africa. So where issues of...
is it population advantage or business advantage?
When I say population advantage, you should know it cut across all regions. It cut across business, anything, even relationship, in terms of Nigerian getting married to the South Africa indigene. So when issues of this nature come up, it's very obvious to say these Nigerians are being attacked. There are other Africans, national, also being attacked. I'll give you a clear picture. The incident that has resulted into what is going on now, as the story was a hearsay, a Tanzanian or a Nigerian shot a taxi driver. But as of 2 days ago, it was a clear fact of an eyewitness, key eyewitness. He said he was there. He witnessed when this Tanzanian guy put a gun on the driver and shot at him. But see, the problem is management, image management. This is where we have a major issue. See, because, why is it Nigerians everywhere, Nigerians everywhere? Now, the overall story, the overall picture is assumed Nigerians are the problems of South Africans, the local South Africa, the local indigenes. But it is not so. This particular incident, the main culprit overlooked, and the entire blame, the entire focus shifted on Nigeria. Of course, we agree that we are large in every aspect, in our attitude, in our relationship, in business, we are large.
In aggression? In
aggression, in every aspect, we are large. So it is understandable, okay? But like I said, irrespective of our size, our major issue, our major concern is managing our excesses, managing our large size. And this is where we have a bone of contention with ourselves, with any other person.
Managing our large size, managing our image. You're laughing. So that thing about, yes, indeed, I heard this. A friend of mine who is Kenyan tells me how they perceive Nigerians. That if you walk into a restaurant, it's only Nigerians that can walk into a bar and say, "Hey, barman, give drinks to everybody." That's what she said.
Exactly.
She and her boyfriend were together. And her name Edith, that anchored Eco Africa with me, said, you walk into a club, it's only Nigerians that can say, "Hey, I'm buying drinks for everybody."
Yeah.
That's, you just know in Nigeria when they're coming.
Yeah.
But is that a plus or a minus? And how best? I mean, you live there. You say you lived in China for 14 years.
14 years.
And you still know people who are there. You're coordinating them.
Yeah.
Is that the best? How can we manage that large frame that Nigerians tend to carry?
Well, for
Since
me,
it's rubbing off on the wrong side of
well, it has been a kind of, like I said, mannerism. It's in us. That's wherever we are, we try to carry people along. We try to kind of tell how kind we are as Nigerians. We try to accommodate. Nigerians are accommodating. They accommodate people around them. In China, you hardly see a Nigerian walking in any bar or restaurants or any event place and try to be alone. They want to make sure that all people around them join them in the good things which they are sharing. So it becomes a habit in us, and we can't you can't take it away from us. Even me in China, wherever I go to any restaurants and I try to, maybe you are beside me, I can, after it, I can decide to pay for everybody. I can decide to do that. It's like become part of us. And it's like we like socializing. That is the summary.
Okay, Malaki.
Except that they eat pastries, they're not quality.
But actually, when I... Okay, you go.
Malaki, this hate people feel for us because of the way we are. We can't change the way we are. That is how we are, full stop. And if it's rubbing off on people, rubbing them off on the wrong side, isn't it time we began to look at fixing our own house so that the urge to run away to China, to run away to South Africa, to risk dying, going through Libya, so that those urges are at least, if not quenched, reduced, if life is more comfortable for us at home? Okay, people move around. People are free to live anywhere they want in the world. The European may move to America, but it's not because he doesn't have power in his country. It's not because he doesn't have a job in his country. It's not because he cannot feed himself in his country. These are reasons for which Nigerians are running away from their own country. Isn't it time we began to look at ways of fixing so that our people do not have this urge to run away?
Well, important as this point you've made is rhetorical, in the sense that it's given. Let's even understand it from what is happening presently. Was that airline that offered to... Epis has offered, at no cost, to evacuate Nigerians over there. And the predominant reports we, as people who are monitoring, are getting is that Nigerians are now interested.
Okay,
So,
please hold your thoughts.
Very well.
We'll come back to pick up from that point. Nigerians are now interested in a moment. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Malaki, you were talking about the fact that, yes, someone has offered to bring them home, but they are not interested.
So the reason is, why are Nigerians not interested in coming home, even in the face of attacks? Please be reminded that just about a month ago, one Mrs. Chukwu, an assistant director in the insurance industry, I can't remember exactly, was hacked down, was killed in her hotel rooms. A few days after that, less than a fortnight, another young man, shown all over, was also killed, taken from his shop to the house. Unfortunately for the security police officers who perpetrated that crime, the younger sister videotaped all that happened, and we'll watch it. The question is, how many of such perpetrators have been arrested, tried, and convicted? What is the report on the investigation, if ongoing? We knew when Oscar Pistorius in the same South Africa was involved in that, situation. Today he's serving his prison terms and so on and so. If you just oppose that with the kind of statements coming from government officials, the deputy police officer, as well as comments made by even Cyril Ramaphosa, who is an integral aspect of this whole struggle against apartheid. I'm not talking of his recent statement. Earlier statements, you could see some measure of tacit endorsement of what was happening, legitimizing, in short, validating the crimes as they are. So Nigeria will continue to harvest this level of avoidable extrajudicial murder across the globe for as long as we remain a shadow of ourselves, for as long as we refuse to fix our country. And what is more, it is painful because it seems to me that every other country is sure that nothing will happen when a Nigerian is brought to the arms way. Just 2 weeks ago, at the level of CDHR, we protested on the death sentence passed onto one Olufemi Suleiman in Saudi Arabia, a young man who was alleged to have been involved in the killing of a police officer. He says he knows nothing about that, and that the statement he was made to sign in court was written in Arabic language, and he couldn't understand what was written. Yet he was forced under serious torture to sign that statement. It was the same statement that was interpreted by the trial judge as a confessional statement. So I'm saying that, look, we have conducted ourselves in such a manner that we can be right roughshod by any nation and nothing happens. There are no consequences for the violation of the rights of Nigerians, and it seems a practice now that you can always make a statement, difficult as it is, with the killing of Nigerians all across the globe. And let's face it, these diplomatic efforts going on is wonderful. But there is a limit to diplomacy. I have argued elsewhere that in diplomacy, there is no yes. There is perhaps. There is no. There is maybe. So all of these efforts to balance and give euphemistic outlook of what is happening without calling it extrajudicial murder of Nigerians will continue to infuriate the people of this country and then reduce the prospect of the reconciliation that may come out of the efforts they are making. Why not recommend these people for genocide, which is what it is? Because take the number, the statistics, we've recorded over 200 within the time frame that this whole thing has started from 1985 to this period. What is the essence of the ICC, the International Criminal Court, pursuant to the Rome Statute? It is to be able to deal with issues of genocide, war crime, and so on and so forth. So we must find a way of escalating. What is AU doing? What about the ECOWAS? This is precisely the very philosophy behind Organization of African Unity. The brotherhood that will strengthen our communality and then promote the strength that we have as a people.
You wanted to add to this?
I just want to say something, how to face this country. That was the question that was put across. I have said it time without number because I reside in China and I know the secret that's catapulted China to where they are today. I have also said it time without number. I've even did a press conference calling on this, our Nigerian government to pay attention to one particular sector in this country. One particular sector. Not having so many agendas on the table and all of them seems to be a mirage. That sector is power. If there is no steady power supply in this country, it will be too difficult for this country to make headway. In fact, I was so excited when I had Dangote joining me in this call that there will be no economic growth if there is no steady power supply. For the past 6 years, my NGO has advocated more on steady power supply. The reason I say this is, once there is steady power supply, these are our Nigerians that are entrepreneurs by nature, especially the Igbos. Their creativity, these guys can do exploit. But because there's no conducive environment, it's too difficult. Now, when there's steady power supply, some of these things, I said it earlier, that 80% of what we consume in this country, madam, find out, carry out this investigation, is from China. Because they have that conducive environment. Once, in fact, the statistics have shown that out of 10 families, 7 or 5 are into production. Once you indicate interest, the government will fund you, give you loan, then tax you a kind of, they bring this incentive, 10% rebate of every item you export out of China. They will ensure that there will be accessibility to where your factory is located. And they will ensure that you have steady power supply. Now, if we have steady power supply, I remember the previous administration, when they visited China, I engaged them. And I told them, look, you are calling on us to come back home. I yielded to that call, madam. I opened a factory in Imo State. About 300 or 400 people are there working. The president's administration commissioned it. In that factory, I run almost 600 liters of diesel per day. And
where's your profit?
Where's the profit? The profit goes in there. And you can see, if all of us, Nigerians in a diaspora, have this fund, have money to come back home, but they choose to go into hotel. Now, where is transfer of skills, transfer of technology? Where is all this? If all of us, the billionaires in Nigeria, will go into industry, you know what will happen? It will take away our teeming youth from the streets. And they'll be working. Honestly, I have said it. Last time I have also engaged in investment forum between Nigerian government and Chinese government. I have facilitated some. Last 2 years, about 24 governors are in attendance. I facilitated it with the Chinese, with the embassy there. I told them, look, all this will be a miracle if there is no power, if there is no steady power supply. Because, look, okay, also let me give you one statistic, madam. Last 3 years, when I went to ATA, I discovered that before my trip, I heard on the TV that 75% of the contract awarded in this country was awarded to Chinese companies. Now, where is the trade balance? There's imbalance. Because these people have, they produce, okay? They will send to Africa, who will consume, repatriate that money back to them. So the only way we can take away youths from the streets, stop them. Nobody, in fact, the call I made this morning, none of them want to come back home. To do what?
To do what?
To do what? There is no job, for crying out loud. So I have pleaded with this present administration, time without number, focus on power. When you focus on power, do you know what will happen? We will, like in China now, somebody will stay in one room because there's steady power supply, think of what to do, develop it, manufacture it, and send to Nigeria. I have also advocated in my previous press conference, we have 6 geographic political zones. Let the government map out one amount of money and say, the Southeast should concentrate on motor spare parts, furniture, bring the equipment. I can be involved. Or Nigerians in diaspora who are knowledgeable in all this can queue in. Southwest, concentrate in this. Northwest, concentrate in agriculture. Give us the enabling environment, especially power. I tell you, within a few years, you'll see what happens.
Njoku, yes. The result, we need to wind down. So resolving this, because let me just read it so that you. Festus says, Akimbewa says, those who have traveled extensively know that Nigeria is by far better than some of the countries that they risk their lives to migrate to. Time to educate our people to look inwards. So go ahead.
Let me pick it on this note. You know, in most times when the majority of Nigerian authorities come to China, because we were in the media, we were in the business of promotion, our interest, which is to take most of what found in this land down to Nigeria. And we told them, sir, the best you can do is engage some of us who are in particular interest areas. You have some in business, you have some in the technology, you have some in art. You have a diverse Nigerian, but you know one shocking experience. Nigerian authorities come to China, they bypass the diaspora community, and they deal with the Chinese locals. And what kind of impression does that give of your people in China, in overseas, whether it's in South Africa or in China or in anywhere else? So it gives the wrong impression that these people are not to be relied upon. We took part in the first promotion during the previous administration. We led a very strong campaign of the return of most diasporas who were doing pretty very well in China, a lot of them. Some did hit the call. There was a particular incident. They said, you give us a portion in any region in Nigeria. You call it the diaspora Nigerian village whatsoever. Some were bringing their own equipment. Some were bringing their own expertise. Some were bringing all manners, including their partners. We welcomed that down to Abuja. But do you know, when the people we are engaging come to the same China, either for business engagement or for whatsoever, they boycott this diaspora.
The question I would like to ask you is, when you're out there, for instance, how do you relate with the high commissions or the embassies there? Do you relate well with them? Do you go to say, okay, I am here, I have arrived in China, I live in China, to register in the commissions?
Very good. When we started, S.Africa, when we started, we're the media platform of everything China, Africa. When we started, our major focus was to tell the community, the entire community, this is what we're doing. Initially, we aligned with the AU. China happens to be where you have the largest concentration, AU member country, where they are very active. So initially, we aligned with the AU member country at that platform. Then as we made progress, we come down home. This is charity begins at home. We aligned with Nigeria Embassy. What we were doing then is say, this is who we are. This is what we were doing. We would like to be aligned with your part of your program, so that this message could be sent home, that there are Nigerians here who are willing and able to assist the home government to bring a change, most especially in those areas that are of utmost concern in terms of development. But unfortunately, we didn't see any interesting. I'll tell you one particular thing. It's a diaspora, what they call the platform was created called the Diaspora Commission. When the Diaspora Commission was created, it came to China. We were very excited. This would be one good platform for us to air our interest and view. Okay.
Okay. Malaki, we must start winding down. Okay. Now, there have been calls for Nigerians to boycott all things South African. Is that going to help towards resolving this issue? Well, and couple that with the call from the APC chairman for shares of South African-owned companies to be nationalized.
Well, I imagine that you are particular on what the solutions should be. Amongst other things are the ones you are mentioning. But please, my first big concern is what will be the consequences of ignoring our demands. You are aware that we've talked about compensation. This time around, I was listening to the union, the Nigerian union in South Africa, in your studio, I think yesterday also. And there was this report that there was no single life lost this time, but there was wanton destruction of property. Now, for that reason, compensation has been, muted as one way to cure the situation. But that was outrightly rejected by the government of South Africa. So, what will be the implication of such a refusal? To what extent would you treat the request of the victim of such criminality without consequences? That is my concern. So there's the issue of compensation. There is the issue of diplomatic engagement. And I'm happy that the government has sent envoys, special envoys. The outcome we have not had. I'm not even sure whether the meeting had occurred with Cyril Ramaphosa. What are the demands? What are the minimum demands? To what extent will the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, beyond the hot airs that we've always had and seen over the years, where citizens of Nigerians are hacked down, future prospective Nigerians are cut down, ambitions that led you to South Africa in the first place and so many other countries are aborted. Beyond that, those hot air that we hear on televisions, what is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs putting on table as the minimum, minimum irreducible demand this time around? To what extent will the commission you talked about, that is the Diaspora Commission, under our amiable Madam Abike Dabiri, whom I think merely just changes figures now, just change figure, change date, depending on the number of people who are killed and the location of the killing. Then, what about toying with the idea of escalating this beyond where it is located? The United Nations should be called upon. I was with the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights of the United Nations just 4 days ago. That was on the issue of human rights. To what extent are we engaging internationally? What is the ICC doing? We can do referrals on these cases. And then, more importantly, the agency concerned with the orientation of South Africans must now, pull up their sleeves and go to work. South Africans must understand precisely what happened and how they came to where they are today in terms of liberation. Where I come from, they say if you do not know where the rain started beating you, you will not know where it will end. So there is a need to bridge that gap. There seems to be generational disconnect, and so on and so forth.
In China now, we lost a pastor last 2 weeks because recently the Chinese authority are coming down on foreigners that have breached the law. As I told you, madam, in Guangzhou, China, over 10,000 Nigerians are there. And I want the federal government to be aware of this. And out of these 10,000 Nigerians, 80% of them are married men. Okay? Out of these 80% that are married, what has visa is not up to maybe 10 in number. I mean, that are living with their family is not up to 10 in number. They only give visa to individuals without you allowing your family to come in or to bring in your children. And that have resulted in the quest of Nigerians not having access to visa. Some of them that are living there are living without visa in China. And we have pleaded with Chinese authority in as much as most of us are bad in terms of doing some illicit trade.
Mago.
Yeah, illicit trade. That will not take the fact away, brother. You will not take the fact away, but 85% of us are living, are doing legitimate. So we are pleading with the Chinese authority not to stereotype Nigerians living in Guangzhou. Okay. Let them try and kind of leverage and give that and do legitimate.
No, we really have to go. I wanted to read this out because Colin Smith says he lives in business. He lives in South Africa, has a business. He says Nigeria is better than all these countries. The only difference is that their government has the system that works. Yeah. So Nigeria can work if we have a working system. Yeah. Nigeria is better than all. That's Collins Smith. Thank you, gentlemen. Barrister Malaki Ugumadu, President, CDHR, Jerry Njoku, Publisher, S.Africa, and Festus Mbisiogo, Coordinator, Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, China. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts. All right, so back in a moment. Please stay with us.